Tonight on the Worldview Report, a Biden aide is caught on camera admitting that the administration is waiting until after Biden's re-election to sell out Israel. One of Biden's nominations to the federal bench comes under intense questioning when it is revealed she once allowed a serial rapist to be placed in a female prison just because he said he identified as a woman. There's a war going on within the Republican Party over the platform that will be presented at the GOP convention later this year. We'll break it down. The EPA has issued an enforcement alert urging water utility systems to take immediate actions to protect the nation's drinking water from cyber attacks. And Visa unveils a new biometric payment service that allows customers to connect a number of bank accounts and money accounts in just a singular card, making use of a digital ID. All these stories and more as the Worldview Report begins right now.
This is Worldview Report with host Brannon Howse. Whether it is news from the nation's capital or your state capital, from the classroom to the boardroom, from national security to national and local news that impacts you and your family, Worldview Report is your trusted source for vital and uncensored news. And now, here is Brannon Howse.
Good evening and welcome to the Worldview Report. Leading off tonight, Project Veritas has caught one of Joe Biden's national security advisors, a man who works at the White House National Security Council, on camera, admitting that, quote, we have to wait until after his re-election before we really go against Israel, end quote. Watch this.
And they'll give you an opinion that you didn't ask for. You know, we have a long relationship with Israel.
Why?
Because of what we did in World War II.
Oh,
Yeah.
World War II.
Even before that, the Balfour Declaration, which gave Israel its first start in 1984, we were, involved in it.
Right. Does that have to do with AIPAC too? Because I hear a lot about that in the news.
So I was going to say that there's a huge, Jewish, powerful Jewish influence in both Republican and Democratic politics. And the administration is definitely facing a conundrum of siding or like being as active as like some of our more progressive or Democratic liberal factions and parties, and like losing the Jewish, having the powers that be placate the Biden administration as like anti-Semitic, and losing the next administration because of that. And whether we're having internal deliberations about like,
I'm sure
about that, whether Israel's actually or not, that's not really something that you can like. Even those deliberations can't really have publicly without like anyone getting pissed. People are being pissed off as it is.
But why? Why can't it be public?
Because they would piss people like them off. And it's not like we aren't hearing it from our constituents,
Right.
Congress, from our families. My boss is very Jewish.
I'm worried about November.
You should be.
Is that?
You should be.
How do you combat? How do we combat it?
Again, there is this. Obviously, there's a thought that says we should be more transparent, but Israel has both a domestic and international footprint. Domestically, we have so many Jewish people. We've stuck by them so long, and there's such an easy way for like certain folks to twist this message of like, oh, we're standing up for human rights. There are even folks in the U.S. is turning against us to play like a martyr. We would lose. There are political calculations that are being made that I'm not making. There, whether how do you that, like, and like if Biden won again, he could be much more forthright about saying no. Like, you had that terrorist attack October 7th, and it was by Hamas, but like we can help you. You're doing it. We can't even really say that because it's all classified. But like we can help you in the way that we can. But like you're not going to continue to lie and bomb and kill all these kids without facing serious consequences.
There it is, spoken in the wide open. The Biden regime plans to completely sell out Israel after the election, assuming they win re-election. A Senate confirmation hearing blew up in chaos on Wednesday over a Biden-nominated judge who placed a 6'2" biological male convicted of multiple child rapes in a woman's prison. Why? Because this brute rapist identifies as a woman. New York Judge Sarah Netburn dismissed the Bureau of Prisons' concern for female inmate safety and moved July Justine Shelby, born William McLean, to a woman's prison in August of 2022. Shelby, 60, had previously been convicted in 2 separate Indiana state cases of child molestation of a 9-year-old boy and rape of a 17-year-old girl. Served 18 years in prison, then violated parole and was sentenced to 15 years in state prison in 2017 for distributing child pornography. During Netburn's confirmation hearing for a federal judge position on Wednesday, Republican senators grilled her on this case. Senator Ted Cruz lambasted Netburn for being, quote, willing to subjugate the rights of individuals to satisfy your political ideology, end quote. And Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana labeled her a, quote, political activist, end quote, not a judge. Watch this.
This case involves a male defendant who raped a 9-year-old boy. Was he guilty of that?
Yes, the petitioner pled guilty to that.
Okay, so he raped a 9-year-old boy. He also raped a 17-year-old girl. Was he guilty of that?
He pled guilty. The petitioner pled guilty to that crime as well.
So was he guilty?
I hope so, because she pled guilty to it.
He was a he when he did this.
That's correct.
And also criminal deviant conduct, which the record doesn't disclose what that was exactly. Then, after serving in prison, Mr. McLean was released for parole, but then violated the terms of parole by having internet and was sent back to prison. 1 year after being released again, he was convicted of having child pornography. Is that correct?
I'm unclear on exactly the time frame that you're at, but the petitioner was convicted of distributing child pornography.
Child pornography that was images of adults violently raping children.
Abhorrent conduct.
Okay.
For which there are real victims.
And this individual, 6'2", biologically a man. A minute ago you said that when this man decided that he was a she, you said this individual was, quote, I wrote it down, sober and entirely a female. That phrase struck me as remarkable. Did this individual have male genitalia?
I think what I said, or at least what
that is a verbatim quote, entirely a female.
Sorry, what I meant to say was hormonally a female.
Okay, but that's not entirely. Did this individual have male genitalia?
Yes.
So you took a 6'2" serial rapist, serial child rapist with male genitalia, and he said, you know, I'd like to be in a women's prison. And your answer was, that sounds great to me. Let me ask you something. The other women in that prison, do they have any rights?
Is that a question you're
yes,
asking me?
the other women in that prison, do they have any rights?
Of course.
Do they have the right not to have a 6'2" man who is a repeat serial rapist put in as their cellmate?
Senator Cruz, I considered the facts presented to me, and I reached a decision based on what the law
I asked
is.
you a question. Do they have a right not to have a 6'2" man who is a serial rapist put in as their cellmate? Do those women have a right to that?
Every person who's incarcerated has the right to be safe in their space.
But you didn't think so. You didn't think so. And in fact, I'm going to give some quotes from your order because Senator Kennedy is right. This is not a judge's order. This is a political activist. By the way, the beginning of your order says, at birth, people are typically assigned a gender. I got to say that would astonish a lot of Americans. A lot of Americans think you go to the hospital, a baby is born, and congratulations, you have a little boy, a little girl. The assigned a gender, I know you went to Brown, but it sounds like it's in a college faculty lounge with no bearing on reality. The Bureau of Prison argued What I'm saying right now, that if you put this person in a female prison, there will be a risk of sexual assault to the women. And you know what you did? You said you didn't care about the women. I'm going to quote what you wrote.
In a sane country that cared about its citizens, a judge acting as recklessly and irresponsibly as Sarah Netburn, well, she would not only never be allowed to serve on any federal bench, but she would be disbarred and have her law license yanked. Newsweek reports that the Environmental Protection Agency issued an enforcement alert Monday, urging water utility systems to take immediate actions to protect the nation's drinking water from cyber attacks. According to the EPA, recent federal inspections revealed that 70% of the U.S. water systems inspected do not fully comply with requirements in the Safe Drinking Water Act. The agency then added that some systems have, quote, critical cybersecurity vulnerabilities, such as default passwords that have not been updated and single logins that can easily be compromised, end quote. Possible impacts of cyber attacks include interruptions to water treatment and storage and damage to pumps and valves, along with, well, alternation of chemical levels to hazardous amounts. That's what the EPA said. Quote, in many cases, systems are not doing what they are supposed to be doing, which is to have completed a risk assessment of their vulnerabilities that includes cybersecurity, and to make sure that plan is available and informing the way they do business, end quote. That's what the EPA Deputy Administrator Janet McCabe said in a press release. The warning, well, it said that China, Russia, and Iran have, quote, disrupted some water systems with cyber attacks and may have embedded the capability to disable them in the future, end quote. Last year, an Iranian-linked group targeted multiple organizations, including a small Pennsylvania town's water provider. Earlier this year, a Russian-linked group attempted to disrupt operations at several Texas utilities. In addition, a cyber group linked to China has compromised information technology, well, of multiple infrastructure systems, including drinking water in the U.S. and its territories. That is what the alert stated. Central banks are in the midst of a gold buying spree. That's according to new numbers from the World Gold Council, or WGC. The organization says central banks added $24 billion of gold, weighing 290 tons, to their coffers in the first quarter of this year. Folks, that's the strongest level of net demand for any quarter on record, using data that dates back to the year 2000. The WGC says China, Turkey, India, and Kazakhstan are driving much of the demand for the precious metal. According to the report, quote, many have attributed central banks' ongoing ferocious appetite for gold as a key driver of its recent performance in the face of seemingly challenging conditions, namely higher yields and U.S. dollar strength. And despite the high bar set in the last 2 years, the ferocious buying has continued into 2024 in the face of the renewed gold price rally, end quote. Not only is the long-standing trend in central bank buying gold firmly intact, it also continues to be dominated by banks from emerging markets. 10 central banks, they reported increased gold reserves of a ton or more during the first quarter of 2024 alone. The WGC says the previous quarterly record for net demand, it was set in the fourth quarter of last year, weighing in at 286 tons. The group says more data is needed to determine whether gold's recent rise in price will have an impact on central bank purchases moving forward. Here's what the report added, quote, while the recent price rally may have impacted trade execution for those central banks that manage their gold reserves more actively, we do not expect it will derail any strategic gold accumulation plans they may have, end quote. Gold, well, it has moved from around $2,000 an ounce at the start of this year to nearly $2,350 an ounce this week. The price of gold is at record highs, but it's being, well, bought in record quantity. In China, They're dumping record amounts of U.S. treasuries. Meanwhile, the West, they've resorted to stealing assets from Russia in concocting ever more sanctions against the multipolar alliance. And it is intensifying its war-provoking actions against Russia. And all of this means gold will likely continue to rise. We'll be right back after this short break.
People are having great success with a weight management program with Bella Trim, but it's just a tool. In terms of ingredients, Chromex or chromium picolinate improves the actions of insulin, so you have better glucose management, and in addition, it promotes fat utilization. Fat utilization, or fat burning, is also a feature of metabolite, which are two botanicals that stimulate a switch called AMP kinase, and so you tend to burn fat, reduce belly fat or visceral fat. Who doesn't want that? Metabolite has the ability to stimulate satiety or reduce those cravings. That's really very, very important. And it does that by raising GLP-1 levels. In addition, we've addressed the microbiome by using prebiotics. Healthier microbiome, better weight management.
Welcome back from the break. Thank you for joining us tonight and every night. And thank you for telling your family and friends that the Worldview Report is heard here each night, 7 p.m. Central, and later on demand at worldviewtube.com. That's right. If you don't get to catch it live, you can watch it later at worldviewtube.com. While we push out all of our programming for free, we do have a paywall. We've had it for about 15, 16 years. But we push our programming out for free. We even let people watch it on demand for free for 7 days because we don't want anyone limited from hearing the truth over a dollar figure. We want to keep ministry and education front and center. And the one way we're able to do that is through your participation with our foundation. If you appreciate the fact that we produce and push out so much content live streamed and on demand for free, we need your partnership through our foundation, which you can do at WVWFoundation.com. Folks, I know I mention this every night, but how many of you could help us, but you're not? Would you please consider doing so now? We really do need your support. WVWFoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. Not too long ago, a few weeks ago, I received more subpoenas. Why? I guess because I interviewed Rudy Giuliani. I interviewed Sidney Powell. Really? I'm a journalist. I'm a news guy. I interview people and then I get subpoenas for all my communications with them. Well, that requires us, obviously, to have legal bills, and more legal bills. So again, folks, we need your support in many ways we need your support. But one of them is clearly through our foundation, WVWFoundation.com. You'll also find our Sunday night church service available at worldviewtube.com on Sunday nights. I've been teaching this Sunday night church service since at least 2015, and right now I'm teaching through the book of Revelation. You can join us there on Sunday nights at worldviewtube.com at 8 p.m. Central, and we also put it on demand later for free at worldviewtube.com. All again brought to you in part through our foundation, WVWFoundation.com. Thank you for your continued support. The U.S. military will pull all of its troops and assets out of Niger by mid-September. That's what the Pentagon has announced. A group of leaders executed a coup in Niger last year, forming a military, plan that has geopolitically aligned with Russia. The Hill reports that talks of leaving Niger have lasted weeks, but were finalized on May 19th. About 1,000 U.S. troops have been stationed in the country, supposedly for the purpose of counterterrorism operations against ISIS and al-Qaeda affiliated groups. But of course, the U.S., the CIA created al-Qaeda and ISIS, and the real reason it built a $100 billion base in Niger, I don't think has anything to do with eliminating Islamic terrorism. Now, do you? I think the real reason is that Niger is rich in uranium. It has vast untapped oil reserves, gold mining operations, coal mining, and other coveted natural resources. What is it that famous general said years ago? He said that almost all wars and operations are tied back to corporations. So that's the dirty little secret. From the website World Atlas, quote, Niger's mineral sector faces several challenges, such as the employment of children in the mines and fluctuating prices of minerals in the international market. A report by the U.S. government estimated that more than 40% of children younger than 14 were working in mines. About 5% of the children were involved in hazardous activities. The government of Niger has made several efforts to eliminate child labor from the country's mines, according to reports. But those efforts have been relatively unsuccessful. And in 2014, the U.S. government reported that children were still working in the Nigerian mines. Russia apparently offered the new government there in Niger a better deal. And so it's flipped sides. The withdrawal plan is, for the most part, about equipment, and equipment will be airlifted from the country before September, with everything out by midway through the month. Military infrastructure and some items, well, they are too large to transport, and they're going to be left to the Nigerian military. I don't know about you, but this smacks of Afghanistan all over again. Niger, they ordered France to withdraw their troops before negotiating with the U.S. on its withdrawal agreement. Well, now it's time for our nightly Worldview Report commentary. Germany is essentially decriminalizing child pornography. Zero Hedge reports that the German parliament has forwarded a bill that makes possession and distribution of child pornography a misdemeanor instead of a felony, thus greatly diminishing possible penalties. German officials, they claim that the new law is meant to address inconsistencies in previous child pornography laws, which are sometimes applied to people who, quote, receive images or videos through email or social media without their permission, end quote. They also cited instances where two minors traded images and were charged with creation or possession of child pornography. Critics of the bill argue that the German government could have easily made legal adjustments for those specific exemptions in order to avoid innocent people being wrongly imprisoned. But instead, what they're doing is trying to institute sweeping changes that reclassify the crime and, in fact, give greater legal protections to an array of child predators. The new law, well, it does not make exceptions for adult offenders. According to the parliament, the bill stipulates that, quote, possession and acquisition should be punishable with a minimum penalty of 3 months imprisonment and distribution with a minimum penalty of 6 months imprisonment. The offenses regulated in Section 18.4b of the Criminal Code are therefore classified as misdemeanors and not as crimes, end quote. Zero Hedge, they rightly pointed out that the wider pattern here, which involves not just Germany, but the collapsing of the Judeo-Christian value structure that underpins Western civilization, is under direct assault. Well, I hate to say I told you so, but I wrote a book in 2008 that came out in 2009 called Grave Influence and predicted this was going to happen because I saw that, well, Hollywood and pop culture around the world had made into a hero Alfred Kinsey. Alfred Kinsey, who really is the founder of much of our sex ed curriculum in America. He taught that all sex was equal, regardless whether between adults or children. He taught that children should be sexually active within the ages of 6, 7 years old. He taught absolute perversion. And we even had Ruth Bader Ginsburg write a legal piece for the American Civil Liberties Union as one of their attorneys back in the 70s, arguing lowering the sex age limit to age 12. So we all saw this coming. At least a lot of us did. In fact, here's what the outlet writes, Zero Hedge. Quote, are you starting to see a pattern yet? First, there was the introduction of gender fluid and LGBT ideology into public schools. Then there were sexualized drag queen performances for children. Then leftist activists demanded that pedophiles be referred to as minor attracted persons because they can't help who they are attracted to. Then California passed a law reducing charges for adults engaged in sexual relations with minors. And now the German parliament has forwarded a bill that makes possession and distribution of child pornography a misdemeanor instead of a felony, greatly diminishing possible penalties, end quote. And folks, it won't stop there. More traditional values, they will get cast aside, and it will further lead to Western civilization's slide into a, well, murky mire of decadence, and thus the hand of God, well, it'll stop being there. More and more, God will remove his hand of protection against our nation and other Western nations that are involved in these values. In fact, more traditional values will not only get cast aside, but they will become criminal. It will be criminal to speak the way I have to you tonight about these issues. You just watch. It'll be considered hurting the feelings of sexual minorities. There's already a bill that passed the House in Michigan that talks about criminal and civil penalty and re-education camps for people that do that. It hasn't gone into law. I don't think it even passed the Senate, but it passed the House. We had an attorney read it and come on the air, and he said it was the worst bill he had ever read in American history. So, folks, what I just reported tonight, sadly, will one day, I believe, be illegal because it will hurt someone's feelings that is attracted to minors. I say it every night, may God save America. But I'm telling you, we're running out of reasons for God to save America. Well, that does it for this edition of the Worldview Report. If you appreciate what we're doing, we appreciate your support. One way you can support us, by the way, folks, is by tapping into our Worldview Tube Vault. Our Worldview Tube Vault is where we have archived 20 years of my radio shows, TV shows, Worldview Weekend conferences, transcripts. All my books are in there as ebooks. All my documentaries are in there. 20 years of hard work and research. And you can join for a very nominal price. Okay? You'll find all the details at worldviewtube.com/vault. Get your pass into the vault and get into our archive. And folks, you're going to be stunned at all the great resources that are there to edify you, equip you, and encourage you, and arm you with the truth you need to win the battle for the mind. Worldviewtube.com/vault. Okay? Also, don't forget about the fact that we take it every day. Melissa and I do. It's called Bella Grace. It is a powerful elixir with collagen, cat's claw, that's an anti-inflammatory, and astaxanthin, that's loaded with antioxidants. Get a subscription like Melissa and I do and save. By the way, you can also go to melissahousebg.com and learn how you can offer this yourself on social media, on the internet, to your family, your friends. And by the way, if you get enough people ordering it, you get it for free. If you get enough people, and it doesn't take many, if you get enough people ordering this on a subscription, you get your monthly subscription absolutely free. You can check out how to join Melissa and I's team and do that and support our work as well when you go to melissahousebg.com, melissahousebg.com. Also, don't forget about going to newme.com/house1. This product is loaded with what's called glutathione. Glutathione is a molecule that detoxes your cells. 162,000 studies on glutathione just on PubMed. So you don't have to take my word for it. Melissa and I swish with this. Why? Because that way your stomach acid doesn't destroy it. So you swish with it for 2 to 3 minutes, two times a day. Dr. Lana says she has a medical friend that does it 4 times a day. MD. But a lot of medical doctors know about the power of glutathione, and that's what's in the Numi Swish. Full details at Numi, N-E-U-M-I, Numi.com/HOWSE and the number 1. Hey, are you looking for a solar generator? We looked for years to try to find a company that we could recommend, and now we have it. And you'll also find satellite phones and cell phones that don't track you, all at worldviewtalk.com. Worldviewtalk.com. You can find that website there if you want to check that out. And then finally, don't forget about twc.health/Brannon. Get your contagion kit now. Folks, Dr. Peter McCullough was on my show the other night, and he said bird flu is what they have been calling disease X. He said, don't panic. This is what Dr. Thorpe has said. Don't panic. Be prepared. What they're going to roll out if you get sick and you have the contagion kit, you'll have what you need. The pharmacies may run out of this. They may withhold this from the public at the pharmacies, like they did ivermectin. So go ahead. I think it's wise to get stocked up on your contagion kit at twc.health/Brannon. When you use that URL, you not only will save money, but again, it helps to support this broadcast because they track that sale and help us out. twc.health/Brannon. Click up at the top of the page where it says kits and choose the contagion kit. There's all kinds of other stuff there you can choose from as well, by the way. You'll find all the details at twc.health/Brannon. All right? Thanks again for your support in these various ways so we can keep this network going and growing. So next time, I'm Brannon Howse. May God save America. Take care.